100 years ago, the great African-American scholar W.E.B. Du Bois famously said that the problem of the 20th century would be the problem of the color line. Look through the history of the century, from the race riots in Chicago to the race riots in Johannesburg, from Hind Swaraj to the struggle in South Africa, from Stokely Carmichael and George Wallace to the racists of today. And we see that Du Bois's problem became reality. And today, as we watch the evening news and read the morning newspapers, where are the lines today? What animates the anger and hatred of humankind in this century? Too often, murder is committed to the soundtrack of prayer. Too often, the fault line appears to be what I call the faith line. And I think, as much as the challenge of race is still with us, that the problem of the 21st century will be the problem of the faith line. What can we learn from the issues of the color line to make progress on this all-important, seemingly intractable challenge of the faith line? I think the first and most important thing we learn is that definitions are everything. Because if we believed Stokely Carmichael and George Wallace's definition, the apartheid government's definition of the color line, that it separated black from white or yellow from red, it would be just as treacherous today as it was 100 years ago. Instead, a half-century after Du Bois, Martin Luther King Jr. came along and he said, the color line does not separate black from white or yellow from red. The color line separates those who would live together as brothers from those who would perish together as fools. What might it look like to turn Sam Huntington on his head and adopt that same definition into how we view the faith line? Not as a world that separates Muslims from Jews or Buddhists from Hindus, but as a world that separates pluralism from extremism. People who believe in a society where people from all backgrounds live in equal dignity and mutual loyalty versus people who want only their group to dominate and everyone else to suffocate. There are Muslims who believe in pluralism. There are Jews who believe in pluralism. There are Buddhists and Baha'is and Catholics and Protestants and evangelicals and Unitarians and secular humanists who believe in pluralism. And when people say to me, tell me, Eboo, about those Muslims who stepped on planes on September 11th, 2001 and killed people in New York and Washington, D.C., I say to them, you mean those extremists who stepped on planes? And when people say to me, tell me, Eboo, about that Christian who bombed the Atlanta Olympics in 1996, I say, you mean that extremist who bombed the Atlanta Olympics in 1996? Tell me about the Jew who murdered Yitzhak Rabin in 1995. And I say, let's get our language right. You mean the extremist who murdered Yitzhak Rabin in 1995? I don't think murderers deserve the honor of religious traditions. I think we should be clear with our language. The extremists of all traditions belong to one tradition, the tradition of extremism. They are the enemies of us all, whether they pray in Arabic or Sanskrit or English or Hebrew. If you seek to destroy pluralism, if you seek to destroy a world in which people from different backgrounds live in equal dignity and mutual loyalty, you are dangerous to life itself.